Hey, what's up? I'm Darkbblue, aiming to help everyone enjoy games in depth. With many videos, I've covered all the aspects of the combat in Elden Ring. Now we can move to the next component of the logic loop, character progression. With the understanding of combat, I believe now you know the essence of Elden Ring's combat is to use the most suitable strategy, and you need to keep changing your strategy instead of sticking to the same one. And as you change your strategy, you also change your entire loadout. A jumping attack strategy requires a jumping attack gear loadout, and a wild strike strategy requires a skill and a consecutive hit gear loadout. The character progression we are talking about right now is the collection of such loadouts. You can call this collection build. Basically, you need to consider all possible situations you may encounter throughout the game and include the corresponding strategies and their loadouts into your collection. This video's topic is how to craft such a build. To start with, you need an anchor. Although you can change your gear at almost any time and change your skill and spells at size of grace, there's one thing that's hard to change: your character stat. Therefore, character stat is the anchor for a build. When we are talking about builds, we say strength builds, we say intelligence builds, or strength phase builds. This is why. Then let's talk a bit deeper about stats. There are 8 stats, and they can be divided into 2 groups. Vigor, Mind, and Endurance are the 3 basic stats. All builds need to invest into them. The other 5 stats are offensive stats, which are selective differently for each build. When I say investing into the 3 basic stats, I mean all of them. Even a strength and dexterity build that doesn't use any spell needs mind because it still uses skills, and skills use mana. And a sorcerer also needs vigor for more HP. And when I say being selective for the 5 offensive stats, basically you can pick at most 2 of them for a new game run. And if you don't want to grow equally in all the 5 stats, I recommend picking 3 of them for both fun and capability in New Game Plus. As for exactly which 2 or 3 stats among the 5 to pick, I think it's very flexible, it's up to you. Elden Ring allows you to use any stat combination because every combination has suitable gears to be strong. In fact, I'd say which stats to pick is more about role playing than capability. But if you really want a recommendation from me, let it be strength and phase builds, because it's diverse, giving you more fun to play. For any carry builds, pick 1 from strength and dexterity, then 1 from intelligence, phase, and arcane. Such builds are usually straightforward and easy to use. If you pick 2 stats from the latter 3, the builds usually are complicated and might be a bit difficult to use. In conclusion, investing into all the 3 basic vigor, mind, and endurance stats, and then picking 2 from the 5 offensive stats, gives you a stat solution. Using it as an anchor, it's time to choose gears to complete your build. Gears include many types, many aspects, not only weapons, but also skills, spells, talismans, and armors with special effects count as gears. But among them, most are not exclusive to each other. It's well feasible to have them all into your armory. As such, there's no need to talk about them more, as you can simply grab whatever fits your build. But there's one thing that is exclusive, and that is weapon. You have very limited smithing stones, meaning you have to be cautious with your weapon selection. Generally, you can upgrade 2 regular weapons and about 4 sombering weapons. 4 sombering weapons is quite enough for most builds, but 2 regular weapons is really restrictive. So next, we shall talk about how to wisely select regular weapons given the limited resource. I think there are 2 important metrics: skill coverage and stat synergy. Skill coverage is very important. On one hand, we know Elden Ring encourages or even forces to use diverse strategies. where the diverse strategies are made possible by diverse skills. On the other hand, many skills can only be fused into certain types of weapons, not all of them. As a result, you want to make sure the regular weapons you select can be fused with as diverse and abundant skills as possible. Here are some general empirical rules you may follow if you want such abundant skills. First, you want to use 2 different types of weapons. It can be a great sword and a colossal hammer, or a halberd and a great axe. Don't use 2 regular weapons of the same type. Second, the weapons in Elden Ring can be divided into roughly small, mid, and large-sized weapons. Among them, mid-sized weapons such as great sword and great axe have the best skill coverage. Large-sized weapons such as colossal swords have the worst skill coverage in return for their strong attack power. And small-sized weapons such as straight sword and katanas have medium skill coverage, but their basic movesets are kinda squishy. Given the pattern, I strongly recommend having at least 1 mid-sized weapon, especially a great sword. Great swords have the single best skill coverage in this game. Second to great swords are halberds and twin blades, both lacking stamp, and halberds additionally lacking lion's claw. Of course, this empirical rule is not rigorous, so if you are more experienced, trust your own experience. Next, let's talk about the other metric, stat synergy. The general principle is to use weapons that scale with your main offensive stats. But what makes this judgment complex is the fact that you can change the affinity of regular weapons. So how may you know if a regular weapon synergizes with your stat? If the affinity can be changed. I divide affinity into 2 groups. Heavy, keen, quality, fire, and lightning are strength and dex only affinity. They only redistribute scaling factors between strength and dexterity. As such, you can quite freely determine how the weapon may synergize with your stat. Even a great hammer can work with a dexterity build as long as you give it keen or lightning affinity. In this case, you don't need to mind this synergy. The other affinities such as magic and flame art gives this weapon additional scaling factors with intelligence, faith, and arcane. The scaling factors of the 3 stats can be determined quite freely. However, the scaling factors with strength and dexterity are only determined by the weapon itself and you cannot change them. In this way, a regular weapon manifests a certain strength and dex tendency when using such affinity. And of course, you need to make sure this tendency synergizes with your stat. For example, if you gave cold affinity to both twin blade and night twin blade, you find the former better suits dex and int builds, while the latter better suits strength and int builds. As a result, if your build invests into one of strength and dexterity and one of intelligence, faith, and arcane, you need to pay attention to weapon scaling synergy. And the way to judge is to observe the scaling factor of strength and dexterity when using a non-strength dex only affinity. In conclusion, pay attention to both skill coverage and stat synergy when choosing regular weapons. If both are satisfied, you can further consider 2 additional factors. The first is stance damage. Hammer-like weapons have greatly more stance damage than other weapons. Even the lightest hammer-like weapon, flails, have the same stance damage as colossal swords, let alone greater and colossal hammers. The other factor is dual-wielding synergy, usually for dual-wielding jumping attack. As said before, you don't want to use 2 regular weapons of the same type. Therefore, such dual-wielding happens between 1 regular weapon and 1 submarine weapon. So you can prioritize regular weapons that share the same type as the submarine weapons you are already using. Nevertheless, these 2 factors are merely additional. Don't consider them unless the 2 important considerations are satisfied. Now that's the entire picture of crafting your own build. First decide your stats as an anchor, then select regular weapons given the limited upgrading resources. I hope this can help you better enjoy your own playstyle. If you want to join me into depths of games, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you around.